what comes to mind when you think of the city? Take a minute. You can close your eyes if you want. Just imagine it. Let the image sharpen in your mind. Maybe what comes to mind for you are beautiful city spaces, towers of glittering glass, polished marble stretching into the sky, hustling, bustling downtown spaces with cars and trucks, bicycles, and pedestrians going every which way. Or maybe you think about amenities of the big city, things like fancy restaurants and shopping and the arts. But maybe when you think about the city, something less romantic comes to mind. Maybe you think about ugly city spaces covered in concrete and asphalt. Maybe you're thinking about smells like steaming garbage or venting sewers or even car exhaust. Or sounds like car horns and alarms and sirens. And maybe the city that you're thinking about is not a beautiful or pleasant place, right? Cities are complex ecosystems, and they have great potential either for beauty and flourishing or for ugliness. In urban in forested regions of the world, urban forests play an outsized role in promoting beauty and flourishing in our cities. I've spent the last 5 years studying planted urban forests here in Lexington, Kentucky, and I'm excited to share with you today some of our findings about these forests. The spoiler is, absolutely, these planted urban forests have made our city a more beautiful and pleasant place to live. So I mentioned a minute ago that cities are ecosystems. What do I think about that? What do I mean by this? What do I mean by an ecological way of thinking about the city? And I'll share with you just a few key ways that urban development has environmental impacts in the places where we live. And we'll focus on impacts on water cycling, impacts on wildlife habitat, and impacts related to pollution. So prior to urban development, most surfaces are covered in vegetation. These could be grasslands, they could be forests. And in a water cycling perspective, these are really important. These coverings or these surfaces are really important for how water interacts with the environment. When it rains, much of that rain is captured by plant material like leaves and stems, and it's delivered slowly into the soil through a process called infiltration. But after urban development, these spaces, these vegetated spaces are covered over by materials like concrete and asphalt. And scientists call these impermeable surfaces. It just means that water can't soak through them anymore and go into the soil. So in an urban landscape, when it rains, instead of that water soaking into the soil, a lot of it hits those impermeable surfaces and runs right off. And this can cause really serious consequences for receiving streams. It makes them uninhabitable spaces for our non-human neighbors. Urban development or urbanization has effects beyond just water habitat in streams for our non-human neighbors. It really has effects broadly in the terrestrial ecosystem as well. And for this, I'll just invite you to imagine yourself as a squirrel living in the city. Maybe you live in a tree in somebody's front yard. Maybe you have gathered all of the acorns that you can access on your side of the street, but you're still hungry. You've got babies to feed, and you have to store some more acorns for the winter. What are you going to do? This is the part where you say, this is why the squirrel crossed the road, right? So that's the solution, right? The squirrel's going to have to cross the road to find some more acorns if they're going to want to survive the winter, right? But in an urban landscape matrix, that could be dangerous or even fatal for a wildlife species to do, right? Ecologists refer to this as habitat fragmentation. Instead of having one big forest where the squirrels can go from tree to tree without fear of getting eaten by a hawk or hit by a car, now they have to make these sort of dangerous passages from one patch of habitat to another isolated patch of habitat, oftentimes crossing dangerous infrastructure like busy roads. This is not beautiful or flourishing for our non-human neighbors. And a third consequence of urban development that I'll share with you has to do with pollution. And we can think about this in terms of air, water, and soil pollution. So in thinking about air pollution, some key sources of air pollutants in cities can be car exhaust or industrial emissions. And these blow wherever the wind takes them. If it blows into the forest, it blows into the forest, right? It's just these contaminants are just going wherever the wind takes them. And that can make the air where you live unhealthy to breathe. And this is associated with a bunch of human health consequences for sure. It also makes it unhealthy or unsafe for our non-human neighbors to breathe. Water similarly just picks up whatever is on the surfaces that it runs over. This could be pesticides or fertilizer on somebody's lawn. Or it could be automotive fluids and trash on parking lots and roads, right? The water just picks those things up and takes them with it to the stream. And this makes streams an unfavorable or unhealthy place for our non-human neighbors to live. But they also can be unhealthy drinking water sources for our neighbors that are humans who live downstream. And then finally, urban development and urbanization is associated with the emissions of a lot of contaminants that include heavy metals. And these are deposited over time in our soils. So many times, oftentimes, urban soils can be contaminated by decades of urban activity in these urban areas. But as I mentioned before, in forested regions of the world, urban forests play a really outsized role in promoting beauty and flourishing in our cities. And I'll share just a few key examples of how our urban forests can do that. I live here in Lexington, and I'm excited and blessed that I live on a piece of property that backs up on a nice patch of urban forest that straddles the confluence of a couple streams. And so I get to experience on a regular basis some of the benefits of the urban forest here in my own life. One of these is how urban forests help to promote healthy water cycling in the city. I've just described to you that urban development can transform urban ecosystems to be unfavorable in a water cycling perspective through these impermeable surfaces that quickly shed water off the surface and into receiving streams. Urban forests, especially forests in riparian and floodplain areas, can help to mitigate some of these effects by providing a place where water can come up out of the stream and then be held in sort of a temporary floodwater storage system before that water is more slowly released downstream. So we see this regularly in the creek behind our house. When it rains, all that water hits those parking lots and streets and runs off into receiving streams. Our creeks can come up into this nice floodplain forest that we've got, and that floodplain forest serves as a temporary storage facility and then slowly releases that water over time. This can mitigate serious downstream flooding in areas that are downstream from our urban developed areas. Another key benefit of urban forests is shade. You probably have experienced this walking across the city on a hot summer day, maybe in a parking lot where you're getting baked from above, baked from the car, like the sides, the sun that's beaming off of car windows and auto bodies, and you're also getting baked from the parking lot itself, right, where that captured heat is being re-radiated back out to you, sort of baked from all sides. And then maybe you come off of the parking lot and come into the shade of a tree, and you feel just this refreshing wave of coolness under that tree. You may or may not know this, but cities tend to be a few degrees warmer than their surrounding rural areas. This is a phenomenon that scientists refer to as the urban heat island effect. Basically, materials of the built environment like concrete and asphalt absorb and re-radiate heat differently than vegetated materials and surfaces. So cities tend to be warmer, but trees help to mitigate that extra warmth just by providing shade. It's really simple. We experienced this regularly at our old house, where the only place that was comfortable for us to be outside during the summer was in the shade of a mature red maple tree. Third way that urban forests can provide key benefits for us in the places where we live is by improving the quality of our air. Trees, their leaves and their stems capture pollutants out of the air, and then they hold them on their leaf surfaces, and those pollutants can be washed off the leaves of those trees into the soil. This gets the pollution out of the air and makes the air cleaner for us to breathe, as well as our non-human neighbors. And then a fourth example, our urban forests and creeks provide key habitat for wildlife species. And this creates opportunities for us to experience nature in a more holistic way, which ultimately is really beneficial for us as humans and our health and wellness. And it feeds back into more care and concern about our lived environmental spaces as well. I'll share a couple of examples at where we live now with the woods and the creek in our backyard. I've been seeing birds and talking with my mom about the birds that I'm seeing in the woods. There's a pileated woodpecker, which is one of my favorite birds. It's just a massive woodpecker with a bright red crest flying around. A pair of flickers. These are also woodpeckers, but they have a sort of a black medallion on their chest and then yellow under their wings, which is really pretty to watch them fly through the woods. And also a belted kingfisher. And I didn't grow up ever really seeing these birds. I heard it before I saw it at our new house. It just cruises up and down the creek looking for fish to eat. It's really amazing. And then not too long ago, my wife was at our house looking down at the creek and spotted a turtle. This is quite a distance. She spotted a turtle from the house, ran the kids down, got them down there to look at the turtle, and so on. So they, this patch of woods, these creeks, are absolutely making our lives more beautiful and flourishing, as well as the lives of our neighbors, our kids. This is really a powerful role or function of the urban forest in these places where we live. So because of these benefits of the urban forest, many communities are interested in and investing in expanding and increasing their urban forest in their communities through tree planting programs. But up until relatively recently, it's been unclear whether these programs are ecologically effective or merely environmental eye candy. And that's where my research team and I come in. 5 years ago, we set out to ask this question: are planted urban forests ecologically effective? If so, how? And we set up monitoring plots in 20 planted forest sites across the city of Lexington that were planted by community members, people like you and me, participating in a community tree planting program here in Lexington called Reforest the Bluegrass, somewhere in the city. This program has been running for over 20 years. They've established now almost 25 new forest sites somewhere across the city. And we are going into these sites to evaluate how and whether forest ecosystems are developing and what benefits they might provide. And I'm excited to share with you just a few of our findings today, here after 5 years of data collection and analysis. First, I'll share that planting trees into previously mowed grassland has changed the soil microbial communities. Soil microbes do all sorts of interesting things. They make nutrients available for plants, they drive decomposition, and many other things. We found in our research that the soils under our planted trees are actually respiring. They have significantly lower soil respiration rates than the soils in our adjacent mowed grassland sites. This just means that they're breathing out less carbon dioxide. When you take that together with other data about the biomass of trees and biomass stored in leaf litter, this suggests that something as simple as community members getting together to plant trees in their neighborhood spaces could ultimately help address a problem as significant as climate change by helping to store carbon dioxide in organic matter in trees and their leaves and in the soil. Another key benefit that we've seen in our planted urban forests is that they actually provide habitat for predators of insect pests. So you might not know that you should care about insect pests. There's many insect pests that can damage your plants, your outdoor plants, maybe including trees, or tomatoes, or flowers like rose bushes, or even your lawn grass. There's insect pests that attack many of these different plants. And there are whole groups of organisms that eat those pests. And our research found that several of these groups of predators of insect pests were actually enriched in our planted forest sites and could venture out from those planted forests, potentially providing pest control benefits for you, your roses in your backyard. Furthermore, our research found that up to 10 bat species make use of our planted forest sites. You may be hesitant about bats. Maybe they're not your favorite species, but bats eat mosquitoes like it's their job. And so I suggest that you should be excited about the possibility that just by planting trees in your neighborhood, we can bring in some bats, and those bats will then be eating the mosquitoes that are flying around your neighborhood, biting you, right? So this is a great additional benefit of our planted forest sites. And then thirdly, I'll share that in some of our study sites where there's a stream that passes through the planted forest, we actually found that nitrate concentrations were reduced as the stream passed through the forested site. Nitrate is an important nutrient in terrestrial ecosystems, but too much of a good thing can be a bad thing, and this is especially true in aquatic ecosystems. Too much nitrate can cause a complex series of processes called eutrophication. This starts with nitrate enrichment or other nutrient enrichment, and it ends with oxygen depletion and the death of critters in the stream that require oxygen, which is all of them. So it's a really significant problem. If something as simple as planting trees in riparian and floodplain areas with your neighbors in these neighborhood spaces can pull nitrate out of the water, that's definitely going to make our local streams more beautiful and flourishing places, and it will also yield a higher quality water to our downstream neighbors who might be using that as a drinking water source. So you may be sitting here today wondering what you can do, why this matters to you, how you can use the power of the urban forest to improve health and beauty in your city. And I'll share just a few examples of some key strategies for you. First, you can start in your own backyard or front yard or side yard. You can plant trees that are native to your area and avoid infrastructure and particularly utilities, just to make sure that you maximize your potential benefits while avoiding potential conflicts. If you don't have a yard or your yard is too small, you can go work together with your neighbors and work in your local park spaces. Most of the sites that we explored as part of our research program were planted into local parks, and they absolutely have been effective at making our city a more beautiful place. And maybe you come from an area of the world that is not forested, right? In which case, have no fear. You can just plant plants that are native to your area, and they will improve beauty, health, and flourishing in your city, even if those plants are not trees. So I want to leave you today with just this thought. Our cities are complex ecosystems. They do have great potential for beauty or for ugliness. And in forested regions of the world, like here, where we are in Kentucky, something as simple as planting trees in your neighborhood spaces with your neighbors can absolutely promote that beauty and flourishing. How will you work together with your neighbors to improve the beauty and health in your city this season? Thank you.